Welcome to episode 23 of the Inside Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Castro, where we bring you standout industry professionals and have them share how they find success with their unique approaches to the business. Today, we're thrilled to introduce to you Matt Fetick, a real estate powerhouse with nearly 2 decades of experience. Starting out as a paramedic and police officer, Matt made the leap into real estate in 2005 and quickly became one of the top agents in the Philadelphia suburbs and northern Delaware. Known for his innovative smart sale approach, Matt's team has built a reputation for exceptional service and creative problem solving. Recently, Matt and his team joined eXp Realty, where they continue to provide outstanding service for their clients. Matt, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. 2 decades makes me sound really old.
I'm pushing 2 decades for what we're doing.
That's awesome.
So I don't know if you know, but I used to have my real estate license. So I started this business with my father in 2006, okay. And I got my license right as everything tanked in 07, 08. And I have heard your name, many times throughout my career, even after I got rid of my real estate license and been doing this. But until working with your team on a few things, I never got to meet you in person. And I never really knew who Matt Fetick was. I just heard of you. So who is Matt Fetick?
It's kind of fun. I was thinking about this this morning on my way over, just thinking through what I would share or what questions you might ask. And, I'm really an introvert, and I don't have a dynamic personality where I'm out really flashing public and a lot to remember. I'm just kind of a problem solver. And you kind of mentioned my previous careers. I started off as an EMT, became a paramedic, became a police officer. And so my whole life has been spent on helping people where they are, right? Usually in their homes. Every professional job that I've had has always been helping people in their homes, whether it was a police emergency, an EMS emergency, working with them as a real estate agent. So when you think about who I am, I'm kind of a quiet problem solver. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the opportunity to solve problems, provide solutions. I'm a family guy. Nothing gets me more excited than spending time with my kids. My boys have just started playing Little League football, and it's kind of interesting. I used to think all the time when friends or colleagues would be like, I got to get out of here because I've got to get to my kids' practice. Yeah. And I'm like, why are you rushing to practice? You got a game this weekend. I hate missing their practices. I love just being there watching them. So, who am I? I don't know. I'm a problem solver who loves his family. I have a fantastic partner, and we just really enjoy our family time, what we do together.
That's awesome. It's nice to hear you make time for all of that because, I know this business gets a little crazy sometimes.
Only if you let it.
Yes. Well, in my experience, a lot of people let it.
Yeah.
So
I don't.
Yeah, that's good. So with the being the paramedic and the police officer, and then what made you decide to make that move?
I absolutely loved being a first responder. Being a paramedic was fantastic. I still keep my certifications active. I still like to dabble when I have a chance. Being a police officer was really one of the greatest honors I ever had. I worked with incredible men and women. I really enjoyed police work. But there definitely became a point in time where I wanted to be challenged more. And I knew I wanted kind of this opportunity to control my own destiny and control my own time, control my own schedule. So as much as I enjoyed the profession of being a police officer, I wanted that more flexibility. I wanted to be able to take a vacation when I wanted to take one. I wanted to be able to control my income. I wanted to be able to control, where I lived. And so I didn't want to be tied to a job that I knew for the next 15 or 20 years that I would have had left as a police officer to officially retire. I didn't want to be confined to, 4 weeks of vacation per year and certain times off. It was the constraints of the job, not the job itself.
Got it. So, yeah, and I know real estate definitely done right provides that flexibility. Now, were you always a team? Did you start as an individual solo agent?
I did. I started as an agent by myself, which I enjoyed. But But I will tell you, having coming out of police work, what I didn't do really well in the beginning was market myself. I was so used to kind of trying to not be visible in the public.
Right.
As a police officer, when you're off, you kind of don't love running into either people you've arrested or even people that you've helped, because you just never kind of get that downtime. So I was not great about self-promotion. And so I knew I needed to start working on that. So my first hire really was somebody to do my marketing, but then also the details of the transaction. As much as I love working with people and helping them, I'm terrible at the details and sitting down and getting things done, following through the final details. So I hired an assistant about 8 months into the business, because I knew if the customer service was going to be left up to me, it was going to just crumble.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so is that person still with you?
She's not, but she was with me for a long time, and she created and she built up the folks that are still with us today.
Okay, great. So I do want to talk about the team, but you mentioned the the transaction management and that kind of back end stuff, right? How important is that to what you do and providing good service?
It's critical, right? When I think about what real estate is and what we do as agents, I think people get lost in the fact that our job is not signing listing contracts and agreements of sale, right? That's perfunctory. That's the administrative task. What we're paid for and what people need us to do is solve problems. Probably 6 out of 10 sales go relatively smoothly and things kind of march down a field. However, the 4 deals that really have problems, people are paying us for solutions, right? That's what they're paying us for. And so having somebody manage the details, make sure you don't miss the deadlines, making sure that things that are included get done, making sure that sellers know that, hey, yes, that old lien that was placed on your property 9 years ago still has to be satisfied, and tracking down all those things, that's what keeps the transaction smooth, which is what gives us referrals from our past clients, right? We create raving fans because our clients don't feel the bumps, because we anticipate them and then we solve them for them.
Yeah, no, I think that's super critical, as you put it. So when the team was established, was that just kind of adding pieces as you went and it kind of turned into the team, or was it a measured decision to do so?
So I would say initially it was, as I honed my skills taking listings and really working with sellers, I really was running out of time to work with buyers. And I was finding at the time, especially as the market started to shift in 2007, that it was a real challenge to do buyer agency at a high level, to not just show up at the time the appointment started, but to be there early, to have the home open and lights turned on and have the seller's disclosure printed out and all the things that we should do to help a buyer really experience the property correctly. And so I brought on my first buyer's agent a year into the business, because I wanted to specialize. I wanted to be really great with sellers, and I wanted somebody to be awesome with buyers.
Yeah.
And for me, I couldn't do both incredibly well. And so I tried to turn over that part of the business as soon as I could.
No, that makes sense. Now, I always, so we do a lot of property marketing, right? So when I'm there with my clients, we shoot the shit, for lack of a better, way to put it. But, and I'm always asking them, as I see some of them kind of growing and their businesses are improving and they're getting busier, sometimes I'll ask them, is a team in the future? And a lot of them will say, I don't know, maybe. What is it like leading a team?
So I'm really glad you asked that, because I think I think agents that I've coached in the past, or agents I've mentored, or in classes that I've taught in the past, they always come and go, I want to start a team. And my first response is, why? What are you trying to accomplish? And what I want people to think about is, what you want to do is build a business that becomes a team. And so I think a lot of agents, they think about building a team gives them 2 things. One is they think all of a sudden it makes them sell more homes, and then they have more market share, or they place better in rankings that really don't mean much anyway. But they also feel like, and I've had agents, I had a woman come up to me, she said, I want to build a team. Tell me about your advice. And I said, well, why do you want to build a team? And she said, well, I don't want to work weekends anymore. So I want to have somebody else, show all my houses on a weekend. And I'm thinking, lady, if you don't want to show homes on a weekend and you're just going to dump crappy things on somebody, you're going to get a crappy partner. You're going to get people what's inspiring about coming to work for you or work with you under your brand about, oh, I don't want to work weekends, so you can work weekends for the rest of your career and bail me out of weekends.
Yeah.
Right? That's not attractive. That's not a vision.
Yeah.
So my thought, right, on a team, and I even feel like the word's a little bit weird, right? I want people that want to build businesses that they add people to their business as there is enough leads to support them. And this is where I think a lot of people make mistakes. They go, I want to build a team because I want to have this team name. And they bring people in and then they wonder why they're failing. They didn't have enough leads to hit their own goals,
right,
let alone leads to hand to somebody else. So your job as a team leader, and you say, what's it mean to build a team, is to have enough leads to hit your own personal goals with overflow leads that you can't service,
right,
that you give to somebody else who is not good at lead generation.
Right.
Right. I am really great at lead generation. Brian, I think I'm really good at customer service, but I'm not overly personable, right? I truly would be happy, give me a problem, let me solve it and let me get it done. Like I'm not that gregarious, outgoing person. I need people around me who are that, right? I'll get you leads that will feed your family. I need you to be the personality behind it and service those leads at a top level. That's why I build a team, right? Is I have more business that meets my financial needs. I can generate more business that'll meet your financial needs.
Yeah. No, I think that's as we dive a little more into the team. I mean, I think you have a lot of unique tools within the toolkit as far as the team members. So let's talk about with your team. I think, or at least my understanding of how you guys are doing it for an agent that would join the team, you guys provide a lot of support. And in talking with agents over the years and more recently, that's one of the biggest things that I hear, that when you hear about agents jumping to different brokerages, they're like, I'm not getting the support or I'm not getting the culture. So talk a little bit about what you've built and how you guys do things.
Yeah, it's beyond important. If you don't have an infrastructure, right? Agents want to be agents. If they want to be administrative professionals, then they would apply for the administrative assistant role. Agents do their best when they're on the road, meeting with prospective buyers and sellers and helping them accomplish their goals. And behind them is a team of administrative professionals that manage the details. Right? The worst thing we can do is take a talented real estate professional who really knows how to solve problems, who really understands what this business is about, and have them sit there creating a flyer or, calling a bank for a payoff letter or getting tax certifications or getting HOA docs. Yeah. That is the worst use of their time. Right? The more that they're out selling, the better their income can be, and we're playing them to their highest level. And so again, same thing when people say, I want to start a team. My first question to somebody who says, Matt, I want to have a big team. My first question is, well, who's your awesome administrative professional? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have one. Okay, well then who's going to do the work? So let me understand this. You're going to bring on Johnny to be a buyer's agent for your sales business. Who's going to do his administrative paperwork?
Right.
Well, he is. Okay, then why does he need you? Mm-hmm. Right? And then, well, I'll do it. So wait, so you're now going to become somebody's assistant? Mm-hmm. Like, what are you talking about? You have no business trying to build a real estate sales business. And Ryan, this is the same for people that are in the insurance industry or any type of independent business that you're growing, any type of sales related business. You have no business hiring additional lead converters or appointment setters until you have all the infrastructure in place. Because why does somebody need you? Mm-hmm. They can go out and set open houses for somebody else. They can go out and do that. They're coming to you for the systems that you provide. They're coming to you for the administrative assistant who's going to follow up and make sure the mortgage commitment's in on time, who's going to schedule your home inspections, who's going to prepare documents for you, right? That's why people come to work with us, right, mm-hmm. is our incredible infrastructure.
Yeah. What about culture? Because I notice with your team, there's definitely, it's kind of like, seems like a family environment to me. How much does that add to the dynamic?
Yeah, well, so any great culture that we have on our team, I have to really throw it out to our team members and especially to David. David is the culture of our team. He's the one that really makes it personal and homey. It's like it's not my strength, right? My strength sure. is not because I'm not a attaboy Brian, great job today. Like that's not who I am. It's not because I don't believe it. I don't think to say it, right? It's not natural to me to really be this big encourager and supporter.
Sure.
My encouragement and support comes from the tools and resources.
Yep.
Right. My support comes from on a Saturday when you're the agent that is has submitted an offer and there's 9 competing offers and I can tell you how to get that deal done. Right. That's where my support comes from. David and I would say Rachel and Ryan and Stacy, the folks that have been on our team for a long time, they're the ones that lead the culture on that. And I love that because I would struggle with that. It's not my natural gift set. So if it's not your natural gift set, that doesn't mean you can't lead the business, but it means you have to surround yourself with people that can.
Yeah.
Right. You've got to, part of leading anything is understanding your strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely.
And surrounding yourself with people that fill in the gaps and being humble enough to know that I can't do this part. I need somebody better than me at that.
Yep. Absolutely. No, I think that's great. And it goes back to your point, surrounding yourself with, you filling the gaps, right? Yeah. Okay. So agents change brokerages like they change underwear a lot of times. And I think often, a lot of them are thinking it's going to be a magic bullet for their career. I don't think that's why you made the move, and I'm sure it wasn't a lightly made move, but you recently went to EXP. Talk about that decision.
Gosh, Brian, one of the hardest decisions ever. I was with my former brokerage for 20 years. Absolutely learned a ton about the business and built incredible relationships there. And for me, it was my home base. And as I stepped back and looked at what my future was going to look like, I'm no longer involved in the day-to-day ownership of a brokerage myself, which was part of that, right? I owned a couple of brokerages. As I stepped back and thought, and a lot of this was a family decision, that I wanted to spend more time and energy focused on my sales business and our sales business as opposed to multiple businesses that we were running. It provided more time for my family and more control like that. I had to take a real hard look at what brokerage did I think was going to best serve me for the next 20 years. And I did a lot of research and I nailed it down to 2 or 3 options. And quite honestly, Brian, I want to be clear about this. For me, having looked at EXP for many years, I was a never EXP guy. It was never on my radar. I was never going to consider it. And for lots of different reasons, and I don't even need to share those, right? But for me, they were on the bottom of the list. And as I was processing this, idea about making a change, because I wasn't convinced that where I was the right place for the long haul, about where I want to be in 2025, let alone 2030. 2 good friends of mine who were with me in my former brokerage that had left and gone to EXP about 6 years ago reached out and said, and they were always good about reaching out, but they really great guys, Kevin Coffin, Fred Weaver, who we worked together. They taught me how to do short sales back when the market shifted, and we worked collaboratively on that stuff. They're like, hey, would you just take the call and help and let us talk to you about EXP? And I said, guys, I'm never going to EXP. Out of respect for you, I will take the call. I care about you guys and I want to learn more. So I took the call and I got there and I'm like, and one of the criticisms out there is that EXP, there's no such thing as a cloud brokerage and it's all smoke and mirrors. And I sat back and I'm like, well, no, I mean, a cloud brokerage just means that they're deploying technology at a high level for both real estate transactions and for community. So as I dug into it, I'm like, okay, let's explore a little more. And then I spoke to a couple of the CEOs of a couple of other brands about where I was considering. And then I spoke with Glenn Sanford, who's the founder of EXP, had a long conversation with him. And then I had a conversation with Leo Pareja, multiple conversations with Leo. Leo's the newly appointed CEO. I've known Leo for years. He started a real estate tech company called Remine. And I think, probably one of his first customers. And Leo's brilliant. He really is. He's brilliant. He gets it at a high level. And what I was convinced when I was talking to some of the other leaders of these other organizations, they were really smart tech guys or they were really smart business guys, but I wasn't convinced that they were really smart real estate guys.
Okay.
And that bothered me. I just remember sitting back going, you have never sat at somebody's kitchen table and worked through or had a conversation with them about their home being worth $50,000 less than what it is today. You've never sat with a divorcing couple who can barely look at each other across the table and tried to convince them about taking this offer because it's in their best interest. Like, you've never done that. And when I hung up on my second call with Leo, I was like, man, the guy gets it. He has been at the table. He's been at the table for a long time, and he really gets community and relationships. And so over the next several months, we spent a lot of time talking, and I dove deep into the tools and the resources, and it became apparent to David and I, we got it down to 2. And I truly sat back one night and I said, oh shit, David, I think it's EXP. And I just remember that aha moment because, like I said, I was a never guy, and I really sat back and I'm like, I don't know how I got from never to this is the best choice for sure, but it was definitely, there was a moment, and I'm like, never to, I can't imagine going anywhere else.
That's awesome. The funny thing, when you say you were a never EXP guy, I'm in, not selling anymore, but in and around the business. And sometimes I always think, I was like, if I were to get my real estate license again, where would I go now? And I'm not saying I would go to, that would be EXP, but I think initially when they came out, I thought the same thing. I thought they were just going to be like this flash in the pan, just another one of the, boutique things. And I just didn't have that vibe about them. But yeah, they've kind of made a splash.
And I'll tell you from the top down, and when we moved our business over, remember 20 years of systems and models and tools, we didn't miss a beat. Like, their onboarding process was amazing. The tools, we wrote listing contracts that very day and didn't stumble at all. We were like, well, how do you do this? It is so user-friendly and so agent-centric and intuitive. Quite honestly, we feel like we've been there for years. And that was really another reason why we joined EXP, is we sat back and we looked at them like, we have our friends in California there. We have friends in Colorado. And we were like, oh my gosh, it's almost like an old homecoming. That as many of our good friends that we were going to leave from our old brokerage were just as many or more at EXP that we were excited about being back in relationship with.
Okay. Now, not EXP specific, if you were to give advice to a newly licensed agent who's looking to choose a brokerage, what are the top 2 or 3 things you would say they should be, questioning and trying to find data on?
Yeah, being a new agent's tough. There's a lot of things that you have to learn. There's a lot of skills that you have to learn. There's a lot of legal things you need to learn. There's a lot of transactional things to learn. So it's critical to find that company where you believe that you've got the support that you need on a day-to-day basis. My gut is that many people starting out probably should at least consider joining a team, at least to launch their career where they can have a lot of support. Unfortunately, in my experience, is very few brokerages are really equipped to take new people through that process. Now, I will say that there are exceptions, and I'll tell you that Keller Williams, as a company, does a phenomenal job with training, like bar none. Their onboarding, their training, their career launch opportunities are really fantastic. And I think that's true so far what I've seen of EXP as well. You've got to find who can you call again on Saturday night when you're trying to write an offer, who's going to pick up the phone, who's going to be available, whose tech services can you get if you are having a problem writing a contract and the program locks up, who's got 24/7 tech support. All those are the things to be looking for. So I would say immediately, I would look at the tech tools and say, okay, here's my question. On Sunday at 9 p.m., when this thing locks up, is there 24/7 tech support? Right? That's number one. Number two, what specific person is going to be available every time I have a question? Right? That's number two. Number three, it would be for me as well, what's the culture look like? I don't necessarily believe that you have to have a physical office to go to. I think, due to COVID, folks have gotten used to working at home, working from Starbucks, different places. But what does the community look like, and how do people get to interact on there? And you can certainly do it digitally. And that again was a big surprise for me at EXP. I'm a lone wolf, so I wasn't overly worried about it. But when I look I'm like, we're really connected as a community there digitally in ways that I never thought possible. But those are the critical things to check initially.
Okay. Good to know for all you newly licensed agents?
Well, I'm going to throw out one more.
Sure.
You need to carefully look at the contract that you sign. There are many companies that lock you into a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year deal. And if you leave inside of that contract period, they make you pay back or roll you back to a different split.
Wow.
And say, hey, okay, we started you at 80-20, but if you leave within 2 years, you roll back to a 50-50, so you owe us money. And agents fail to really read the fine print.
Yeah.
So if you want to go somewhere, call me and I'll tell you what to look for on a contract. But don't underestimate and overlook what the contracts say.
Okay, that's good advice. Okay, so I want to switch to something a little more probably anecdotal, but important as well. So when I had my license, I was kind of, all gun-ho about it. And that was right around when $1 Million Listings started becoming a show. And, you talk to some people like, oh, those shows are a joke and this and that's not real and all that type of thing. And yeah, they sensationalize it and they add the drama in, they want that for, TV. But New York wasn't a show yet. It was just the LA version. And I was a big fan of Altman and Josh Flagg and all of them. And I think those shows really, if you can see past the drama and really look into it, like those guys are legit. They are total professionals. And one of the things I always liked was the negotiation aspect of it, right? Like they show you, like, yeah, they're not showing you everything, but you can get the gist. And I think I learned a lot from watching those shows. And then as the brand grew and New York came about, I became a very big fan of Mr. Ryan Serhant. What do you think of Ryan Serhant?
So you probably know I'm a respectful fan. Ryan is bigger than life. I have gone to several of his masterminds. I've done some of his branding training, and the guy has his act together. Right. I feel like in $1 Million Listing, they like to pump the drama, right? Where they're on their phone and they're screaming at their client and we're never going to do that. And I'm not a Jerry Maguire approach to contract negotiations, right? I believe our job is to guide our clients and give them all the information so they can make good decisions, but they've got to make the decision. But Ryan, I think, is beyond the real deal. I think he's one of those guys that's a savant. I think he really understands, and probably more so at marketing. He gets it. He really does. He not only gets advertising and marketing and branding, he's got the work ethic that is unbelievable. But he's made a name for himself, and you don't hear anything bad about him, right? So,
no.
But I've spent time in his office. In New York and looked at many different programs with him. We're considering another branding program with Ryan's company. Everybody he surrounds himself with, folks in his training program and stuff like that, are top-notch, phenomenal follow-up, and the guy, he has his act together.
Absolutely. So being that somebody like Ryan is a leader in the business and very high profile, how important is it for how much of an impact does he make in the industry in general, do you think? Because I think a lot of people, I think you're sleeping under a rock if you don't know who he is, if you're in the business. But I think he's a good example of, for people to follow.
So how much of an impact does he have on the industry?
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I think he does incredibly well for the industry is he continues to show the value of the agent in the transaction. Right. I mean, when it's interesting, like when you think about people saying, well, why do I need an agent? I can just put a sign in my yard and hire an attorney, or I can go to Staples and get a contract. If the average homeowner who buys or sells a home twice in their life, 3 times in their lives, believes that they can do it on their own. But then you have Ryan, who's got these, $25, $50, $75 million listings, which are generally probably owned by people who are sharp, savvy business people who do contract negotiations for a career, for a living. If they need to hire him and pay him $10, $15, $20 million to represent them, how much more validity do you bring of what the agent brings to the transaction?
Yep.
And so that's what I really like about Ryan is he's so clearly an advocate for his clients. He so clearly shows the importance of, what he does, right? He stops what he's doing. He's like, all right, team, get in this room. We're going to do this, this, and this. And we're going to run out to that listing and we're going to fix it. What I like about $1 Million Listing when you watch Ryan is, okay, we're going to go in and we're staging this whole house and we're putting on this big spread for a broker's open, and he's investing time and money. And then I go to the MLS, this morning, and I'm looking at a new listing, and someone's used their iPhone to shoot 3 photos, and they can barely type, a grammatically correct sentence. And I'm going, these people are entrusting you with their biggest, most valuable asset. And you're not even going to spend money on it. My biggest pet peeve, Ryan, and people are going to laugh when I say this, agents that don't have electronic lockbox keys. And they're going back to, they're using these old combinations. I'm like, I'm not putting a combination lockbox on my client's $800,000 listing where anybody can get in and out, and I don't know who went in and out.
Sure.
And they're like, well, I didn't want to spend the money.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. In this one deal, we're going to pay you $10,000 to sell this one house, and you don't want to spend $6 a month to get access to it?
Yeah.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
So when I look at Ryan, I'm like, thank you for elevating the profession. He always shows up dressed to work.
He always says that I'm going to, he's like, I don't like wearing a suit every day. I do it out of respect for my clients.
That's right. He shows up ready to go. He's never far away. It's the same thing. Like, I'm never far away from my iPad, right? I need to be able to stop at any given minute and be able to look stuff up. This is never more than 5 feet away from me, right? And it's not just as a preference, but you see he runs out and does stuff. If I've had any success in real estate business, it is truly what I'll do for our clients, right? We stage people's homes. We go out and fix things. I had a $3.4 million sale 2 months ago where the deal was going to fall apart because of financing, because they have an attached apartment, and this attached apartment had a kitchen in it. And so the appraisers insist on calling it an accessory dwelling, and the lender wouldn't land on accessory dwelling. And I'm like, give me the definition of a dwelling. And then I said, I'll fix that. You can't have a kitchen and you can't have that. I said, give me 2 hours. Right, I called the seller. I said, I'm coming over and I'm taking out the oven, the stove, and the refrigerator, and then we're gonna rephotograph this and send it to the appraiser. So I grabbed my team from my office. Joe went, Ryan went. We went over there. We are pulling out the stove. We're capping it off. We're pulling the stuff out. We're getting it out of the apartment. We're taking new photos, and we're like, it's no longer a dwelling, right? But we have done that, and I have always done that, and that is. If I have any success in volume, right? I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. Don't misunderstand me. If I have any success by having a volume of sales, and this is what I think is the difference between people that sell a lot of homes and people that don't. And I'm not saying that selling a lot that has to be the goal.
Sure.
What makes us different is we solve problems. And agents a lot of times will sit back and go, yeah, the deal's falling apart. We can't get the financing. I'm like, okay, what's the problem with the financing? Okay, you're with the wrong lender. The lender that's going to lend on this is this lender. Yep. You call them right now, right? We save deals because we'll do what it takes. And I think that's what Ryan does is he raises the bar. You see him over there pulling stuff out. He goes in and he's smoothing out the bedspread before the photos.
Yeah.
Half the agents today, they go in there, click, 3 photos. What do I need to take more than 6 photos for? It's going to sell in an hour because it's your reputation.
I agree. I mean,
Well, you hit a hot button with me if you can't tell.
It's okay. Okay, so I want to get to the NAR thing a little bit. I think generally people know overall what the deal is with that right now. But in talking to agents in their feelings on how things are going to progress, I think for the most part, you're seeing agents with the bigger brokerages. They're kind of, I'm sure they're getting coaching from corporate and all that type of thing. And it seems like a generally either neutral or mostly positive attitude towards it. Like, hey, we're just going to have to guide our clients through it. You get some agents who I don't think is necessarily a great thing, but are looking forward to having the ability to lowball the commissions and thinking they're going to, get a lot more business out of it. But
that's always happened.
Right. Hopefully that doesn't
when your best value proposition is I'm going to be cheaper than everybody else, that's just a race to the bottom.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I have talked to some of my clients and that's their mentality right now. But after I had the opportunity to sit in on one of your meetings, and you guys seem to be looking at it as a large opportunity for you guys. Talk about that.
I don't know that it's necessarily just a large opportunity for us. I think that we get it, and we understand how it helps our clients, right? So it does help our clients. Listen, the NAR settlement is nothing more than uncoupling or unbundling the commissions from a set number, not a regionally set number, but a set number from the seller to the broker, who then divvies it out to another broker, right? All we've done, all we're doing going forward is we're uncoupling it. So whatever you charged before, you charged X percent, and then you gave X percent of that X percent to the co-op agent, right? All we're doing now is we're uncoupling it and saying, Mr. Seller, to represent you in the sale of your home, here's my value proposition. Here are all the things that I'm going to do for you. For that, I'm going to charge this. Now, I recommend that you also be prepared to pay a certain amount of money to a buyer's agent who brings you a qualified buyer with an offer that's acceptable to you. I think you ought to be prepared to pay them between this and this. Here's the range. And you should incentivize people. We want to incentivize. Your home is worth more money based on the exposure that we give it. Right? If I only bring you, and this is my issue with off-market listings, if I can only bring you 3 buyers, your home is worth what 3 buyers think the value is. If I can bring you 100 buyers, then it's worth what 100 buyers think it's worth. And so the way I can get access to 100 buyers is by working, now that all buyers have to have representation, right? Mm-hmm. So don't miss that part. All buyers must have buyer's representation, or they can be unrepresented, but they can't get in to see this listing unless they're represented. Okay. So they're going to have a contract. So that agent and that buyer have already negotiated what that buyer is going to get, that agent's going to get paid for bringing that buyer, right? So buyer and their buyer's agent, they've already negotiated what they're going to make for providing them with their service. That agent's going to bring you a great offer on your home. And if it meets your needs, you're going to contribute towards that amount of money. Right. And it's good for me. I want to be able to call 50 agents and tell them that you're willing to incentivize them to bring their buyers there because you're going to pay them. Right. So I think what the NAR settlement really was about, which quite honestly, I think the premise initially was just completely wrong. Right. The only person that made money on it were the attorneys. Right. There's nobody in the U.S., no home buyers or sellers that are walking away with lined pockets. It was the plaintiff's attorneys. Right. Period. The outcome is going to be and is just transparency, right? This is what you're engaging me, right? If I go to an attorney, right, they send me an engagement letter, right? The attorney says, I'm going to charge you $350 an hour. And if an associate works with you, it's $175 an hour. When my paralegal touches your file, it's $50 an hour. And we sign that and we agree to it, right? And so now as a buyer's agent, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to say, here's all the things that I'm going to add value to you in your home buying experience. I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And for that, I'm going to charge X percent. And I'm going to represent you in this process. And when we make an offer, we can ask the seller to pay me for bringing you a qualified buyer and presenting you to them. Right? It's about talking about it. And I think the reason agents are scared about it is agents think that the general public thinks we make too much money. Right? So agents are afraid of it because they don't want their clients to really know how much money they make. No. And I'm like, why? If your value proposition is strong, I'm not afraid of it, right? I'm not afraid. But look at Ryan Serhant, right? The guy gets out of the custom Range Rover that he does into this custom building. He's not afraid to say, I make good money because I make my clients good money. Yeah. Right? I'm a byproduct. The nice thing about real estate is I only make money when my clients make the money that they want to make or more, right? So my seller clients only pay me if I accomplish all of their goals. Right. If I never accomplish their goals, they don't get paid. Yeah. Same thing as a buyer's agent. So who cares? The NAR settlement is a nothing more than clarity on buyer agency, clarity on compensation, and it doesn't hurt a thing.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I think that's how it's looking like it's going to shape out. I have a question though. So you're saying buyers can't, and the buyers have to be represented, right?
They can be unrepresented if they call the listing agent directly, but then they must acknowledge that they're fully unrepresented.
Okay.
So then they have no representation. So then they've got to understand that the agent they've contacted has a fiduciary responsibility to represent the seller.
Okay.
So they can show up unrepresented.
So they can. Okay, I got it. Because
But an agent can't show them a home without signing a contract with them.
An agent can't show them a home. So the
listing agent could show them the home after giving them the consumer notice and having them acknowledge that they are unrepresented.
Okay.
Right. I represent the Joneses. Mr. Smith, I'll show you the home, but I represent the Joneses. Here's the consumer notice before we go in the property, right? Even before we talk substantially about real estate. Please acknowledge that here's what my job is, right? It says on the consumer notice, as the seller's agent, these are my jobs. So when you're coming in by having me show it to you, you are unrepresented and I cannot look out for your best interests.
Okay.
I can look out for neutrally, I can help everybody together, but I cannot look out for your personal interests.
Right. You don't have.
I can't do any harm
to
you, but I am here to advocate for the seller.
I think that seems like it makes a lot of sense to me, and that clears it up. But I've talked to a lot of agents, and it seems like I don't know whether they are didn't understand or they just didn't explain it properly. But a lot of agents have told me that you're not allowed to see a home without it.
Only the listing agent.
What do you mean?
Only the listing agent can show their listing to a buyer who's unrepresented. You may not show a buyer somebody else's listing.
Okay. Yeah. And the reason I was asking, because I was like, okay, what if I'm a former real estate agent and I know how this works and I don't want to.
You can be unrepresented and contact each listing agent directly, but I can't take you to somebody else's listing.
Fair enough.
Because I don't have an agency relationship with anybody.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Today, as of today, I just looked it up, and apparently fixed rate mortgages are at 6.11%. And around 2 p.m. today, the Fed's expected to make a cut between a quarter point and a half a point. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, it's not good. And now people are like, what do you mean it's not good? Right. Every time rates go down, the buyer pool increases and housing prices go up. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. Right. Every time the rates go down, like look at what did housing prices do when rates were in the twos?
Yep.
Right. So as affordability, right, or as the cost of money goes down, the cost of goods go up because there's a bigger buyer pool. Mm-hmm. Right. So if we take a couple of, and this is what people keep saying, I'm like, guys, stop this. They keep saying to me, I'm going to wait for rates to come down. I'm going to say, great, you and 100 other people. So when that one house comes back on the market,
competition,
back into bidding wars, back into all this, and bidding wars don't exist anyway.
So, with that said, so you will get some, in addition to all those buyers you're talking about, if they do go down like that, you're probably going to get some sellers off the sidelines because it's not from their 2.5%, 3% or whatever it was rate that they had. It's not up near 8 now. It's more reasonable. You'll probably get some sellers off the sidelines, but will that be enough to match the additional buyers?
It's not. There's just not enough inventory, and there's no way to create more inventory.
Right.
Bringing interest rates down brings more buyers in and will still outpace the available amount of sellers. And I want to be really clear on this. The only people that benefit from the rates going down in this market, right, in today's time frame, I'm not talking about 10 years ago or 10 years from now. In today's market, the only people that benefit from the rates going down are the people that bought their homes in the last 18 months at high 6s and low 7s that are going to refinance. Right. And they bought their house at X. I mean, we're still looking at double-digit value increases in Chester County and in the Brandywine Valley over last year. Yeah. Right. So you're still looking at 10, 12 % increases over a year ago. That does not get offset by 0.5% of mortgage interest rate, right? The best thing you can do is buy the right home at the right price and with the best mortgage you can get in the moment, knowing that when rates dip in the future, you've locked it in, right? So if you bought at 450 at 6.8, and then we get down to 5.8 and you decide to refinance, you bought that house at that fixed number. Right now, as the rates come down and those home prices go up, would you rather pay $50,000 more for the home with a lower interest rate or $50,000 less with a higher interest rate? You fixed your principal at that number, and you can refinance down to it, right?
Sure.
But if you're buying at a higher price, that's $50,000 more you have to spend.
Right.
So it makes zero sense to allow interest rates to dictate your every move. Now, for some people, they can't afford the home that they want at the higher interest rate, right? So I'm not saying, please don't misunderstand, I'm not saying people are foolish for waiting. What I'm saying is what they hope on the surface will happen, which is I can afford more at a lower rate, I'm going to be able to buy my house. It just brings more competition.
Yep. No, I think if you have the ability to buy now, it's probably a good idea to buy now.
It is. It's never the wrong time to buy the right house at the right price.
Got it. In your professional opinion, what would be a good number for the rates to be at and maybe just kind of like hit like a good happy medium?
Yeah, I think historically, if you look at it, I think anything in the fives feels good. You know, it's, again, I kind of go a little crazy. People will pay 25, 29, 30% interest rates on their credit cards.
Right.
And be incensed by a 5.5% rate, on the place that they call home.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if it's the right time to over leverage investment properties at higher interest. Like I don't know. Like I'd have to look at all the scenarios. But for the average family or a single person, but as for the average primary residence buyer, I think the 5s and 6s are pretty reasonable when you look at the cost of money, the interest rate deduction, the mortgage interest rate deduction from your taxes. As you look at all those things, 5.5 or 6.5% leverage money is not unreasonable.
Fair enough. All right, now I have some questions that your team put together to add on here. So, all right. What was your most memorable transaction in your career and why?
Oh, man. My most memorable. There's two that I can think of. There's a lot of memorable ones. I guess it just depends on what makes it memorable.
Right.
I can remember a short sale listing that we had that took 3.5 years to sell.
Wow.
3.5 years that we worked on that. And I think we had 12 different offers that fell through and worked with the lenders. I mean, it was a crazy, but 3.5 years. I'll tell you that during the recession, 2008 to 2015, 16, it was hard. I mean, we had listings that would take a year to sell.
Yep.
And calling sellers every week with an update to say, nope, it's been 3 weeks without a showing. Yep, we're still alive. We're still here. And
a lot of crappy conversations.
That was a hard time.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of memorable short sales, like a lot of victories there. We closed hundreds and hundreds of short sales, and we negotiated the short sale releases from the lenders ourselves in-house. And we were able to get all of our clients, with the exception of one, but probably nearly 500 folks, 100% debt forgiveness on the unpaid balance of their mortgage. So I'm very proud of that. And we helped a lot of people that were in a really tough bind. So that's memorable to me. And helping families buy, their first home and stuff. I don't know that I can name one, but I'm really proud of our short sale time where we helped people. Ryan, we had dozens and dozens of homes where we had the utilities in our name. We were paying their utility bills because the lenders wouldn't approve their short sale if the utilities were off. We were plowing people's driveways and mowing their lawns, and and I was really glad that we were in a position to do that. So I have a lot of pride in what we did with that.
Any off the wall transaction? There was something, everything went wrong, or anything?
Yes. I mean, that's what we're paid for, right? We're paid for the ones that go off the rails. We're paid for the ones that start to tank. I had a couple pick up and move out of their home. Their stuff was on a truck headed to Florida, settling the next day. Buyers happened to do a Megan's List check, found that there was a sex offender about 5 doors down, and they terminated and they walked away from their deposit, which I don't blame, right? Do whatever is important to you. But they ended up losing, they walked away from a $45,000 deposit that they had on the house. And then our clients are trying to decide, do we turn around, put our furniture back in the house? Do we keep going? And what we did was we just staged it. We're like, take the money, we'll stage it. We'll get real furniture in here. And we just provided a bunch of solutions. We sold it within a week.
Wow.
So we got it turned around. But Yeah, I mean, weird stuff happens in the 11th hour. I've had clients pass away the day before closing.
Yeah.
Wow. And you're trying to figure out what do you do with that, right? And obviously, you've got to be sympathetic and work through it. And it's awful. And there's business to conduct. Like you got to figure out what you have to do to protect them, and you have to have conversations. So it's a crazy business, Brian.
Yeah. No, it's never a dull moment. Okay. Here's a fun one. If you were stranded on an island and had to have one member of the Matt Fetick team with you, who would it be?
My only choice would be David. Not just because he's going to maybe watch the podcast, but for sure, we have a fantastic family. We have a fantastic business. Not a lot of people could work in their business with their partner, and we work really well together. It's fantastic. So it wouldn't even be. It's not even a question. That's
okay.
What it would be.
All right. So here's the last one. So they said they all know how much you love giving hugs. If you could hug anyone on the team right now, David excluded, who would it be?
Yeah, nobody. Yeah, nobody. Yeah, not interested.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I had a client recently, an older gentleman. Him and his wife were downsizing into a 55+ community, and every time I'd leave their house, he'd come over and go, "I'm a hugger," and I'd look at him and I'm like, "You might be, but I'm not." Yeah, it's way in my personal space. So yeah, no thanks. Pass.
Yes. All right. You hear that? Okay. So that is all the questions I have, except for one. I usually ask every guest at the end, send us off with a positive message to the world.
Positive message. Yeah. Right now, especially as we're living in this, challenge of the political times and discontent, where you see family members, disgruntled with other family members based on political things, inflation, and just this kind of, it feels heavy, right? It feels heavy because folks are looking at, inflation. I'm paying more, it's costing more, but unemployment's really low. The stock market's booming. Political discord between neighbors. And you're looking at all. I feel like my positive message is like, it's okay to move past all that stuff. Like, life is good, right? Nobody's going to take away your life. Nobody's going to take away your joy and happiness unless you let them. And you need to rise above these things. You don't need to confront every political discord that you don't agree with. You don't have to disagree or fight with every single person about things. It gets better. And, there's hope on every side of the day, right? And you can choose when you get up in the morning to live in that hope and be excited by it, or you can decide to sit there and dwell on it. And today's the day to choose hope and just stand up and not get drugged down.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. And that's it.
Thanks.
All right.